Hello everybody. Good morning. I was supposed to have a completely different video out this week, but because I'm hanging out with my friend tomorrow and she said that she saw Saltburn and I've seen it's all over my For You page right now. It's all over my For You page right now. She was like, you need to see it before we hang out so that we can talk about it. And I was like, fine. And I'm not trying to watch more movies this year, but I'm trying to watch better movies and document the movies. So I have a Letterboxd account now, and I genuinely think I've only seen like maybe 300 movies in my entire life. Because I have chronicled every movie that I can remember watching, and it's less than 300. I'm not a movie person. Let's make that so clear. I think I saw 4 movies last year. I'm not a movie person. So when she was like, you have to watch Saltburn, I was like, okay. People are talking about it, and people are talking about it in a gay way, and that's really how you sell me on it, because I'm not going to sit down and watch a straight people movie. I simply don't have the time. But Saltburn, okay, let's just preface this by saying, if you wanted some like heterosexual milquetoast, middle of the road, middle America opinion on this movie, this is not the video for you. That is not what I'm going to give you. Because so many people, when they were talking about this movie, I saw so many things on TikTok of people being like, me before Saltburn and then me after Saltburn, and they're just like traumatized, horrified. So I was expecting this to be a very fucking frightening movie. For me to walk away from this movie being like, oh my god, I'm terrified. And I'm not a horror girly, I'm not a thriller girly, so I was like, I don't think I should watch this movie, I think it's gonna be bad for me. Just to walk away from that film being like, that shit was so fucking tame. That shit, respectfully, that movie is so tame. So tame. There's some shocking moments, but I'm not like traumatized. I don't know. All the people who said that they were traumatized, straight people. I have not seen or heard a gay person's opinion where they were like, oh yeah, this is the most scandalous movie I've ever seen. So do with that as you will. Anyways, I've now seen the movie twice. I watched it once with my friend, and I watched it a second time to take notes so that I could talk to my friend who told me to watch the movie, so I could talk to her about it. Because I have so many thoughts, and we're going to talk about all the thoughts right now. To say I love this movie is such a choice, because I don't love movies in general. My favorite movie, High School Musical 3. I think that that's a perfect movie, and I love it, and I've watched it multiple times. I don't know if I would say that I love Saltburn, but I really enjoyed my time watching it, and I think it's a good film. That being said, I think people are completely missing the point of the movie. Everybody's like, it's an Eat the Rich movie. It's literally not. Oliver is the rich. Oliver is rich. Also, spoilers. Spoilers, obviously, for this movie. If you haven't seen it, it's literally on Amazon Prime. Don't get an Amazon account. Just like, I don't know, pirate it. I don't care. Do not give Bezos any more of your money to watch Saltburn. That seems so antithetical. But, again, this is not an eating the rich movie. Oliver is the rich. Oliver is upper class. Maybe middle class if you want to really make that distinction nowadays. He is not poor. But when you watch it again for the second time, like I did, and I took notes, I pieced and pulled different pieces of the movie. Now, we're gonna talk about some theories, because I have theories, because I have thoughts. And also, I really enjoy this movie because sometimes I'll watch like more artsy type films like this, and I just fully won't get it because I'm stupid, and I'm not ever watching a movie trying to like parse out some deeper meaning. If I don't get it, I'm not gonna think anymore about it, because I'm here for a good time. I'm not here to like do homework. Like, I've seen a lot of like artsy films with like more of my film bro friends. Bro in a gender neutral term, because I don't really hang out with men like that. And so many times they'll leave the movie and they'll be like, oh my god, I can't believe the blah 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 blah, the symbolism, the metaphor, blah blah blah. And I'll be like, oh, there was more going on in that scene that just went over my head. But in every moment of Saltburn, I got what was going on. And I got the twists, and I called everything out, and I felt so smart. I felt so smart, and I loved that. It felt like watching Knives Out. I love those like little like mystery, secret-y, deception type movies. Because then at the end of the movie, then they like reveal how it happened. Like in Clue, or like in Knives Out. Like, it's so fun. You're like, oh my god, I did not expect any of that to be happening. I know everybody on TikTok has already done the edits to Mastermind, but literally in like the final montage when Oliver's like revealing his secret plan and you're seeing how he's like orchestrated everything, the literal Mastermind. What if I told you none of it was accidental, and from first time you saw me, nothing was gonna stop me? And I was like, oh my god, it's literally that though. It's literally that. That being said, there are not enough edits for Felix and Oliver to Now That We Don't Talk. That song is also very them coded. Like the first half of it being Felix's perspective, and then like the later half of it being Oliver's perspective. We're just gonna pull up the lyrics. Actually, we're not even gonna get into the movie. We're gonna get into my wish list for edits. Because I think about this all the time, and I haven't made the edit myself because I don't really do edits like that, but it has been plaguing my mind so much, just like my Halsey Supernatural edits that plague my mind, that I do not have the skills or the time or the want to bring into like my actual daily life. But I think about it all the time, and I tell people on the internet to make it, and like nobody listens to me, so I feel like maybe I do, but maybe if I just share it with y'all right now, someone will make it. Anyways, let's just go through a rundown of the lyrics because it's literally so them coded. You went to a party, I heard from everybody, you part the crowd like a Red Sea, don't even get me started. Did you get anxious though on the way home? I guess I'll never know now that we don't talk. That is Oliver talking about Felix, but like at the beginning of the movie. And then you grew your hair long, you got new icons, and from the outside it looks like you're trying lives on. Felix talking about Oliver. Post-murder. Remind myself the more I gave you want me less. Oliver talking about Felix. I cannot be your friend, so I pay the price of what I lost and what it cost. Murdering Felix! Now that we don't talk. Truth is, I can't pretend it's platonic, it's just ended. Their relationship wasn't platonic. That's the crazy thing, is that like, Oliver was like obsessed with Felix. Like, we'll get into my big theory. I don't think so, but like, he was like obsessed with Felix and he like slept with everybody in his family except for Felix. And you would think that's because they're bros. No, it was not platonic. I can't pretend it's platonic. Remind myself the way you faded till I left. The way that Felix was pulling away from Oliver until Oliver had to leave and like kill him. I cannot be your friend, so I pay the price of what I lost and what it cost. Is so them. Is literally the epitome of their relationship. It's like Oliver was like, okay, well, I guess we can't be friends anymore, so I guess I'll pay the price of having to kill you. I guess that's the price we have to pay. We can't be in the same sphere anymore. You have to die. But then the fucking bridge. Now that we don't talk, this is Oliver's perspective. I don't have to pretend I like acid rock or that I like to be on a mega yacht with important men who think important thoughts, Sir James. I guess maybe I'm better off now that we don't talk. And the only way back to my dignity was to turn into a shroud of mystery. Literally the only way for him to get Saltburn was to disappear for a little bit. Just like I had been back when you were chasing me. His like he has to go back into like the lies. Like he had to go back to lying to Elsbeth to be that person that he was back when Felix was chasing him back when they were friends. Guess this is how it has to be now that we don't talk. And they don't talk because he killed him. It just like, I see such a clear vision in my head of this edit and like it doesn't exist and it really hurts me actually. There's only one edit that I found to this song for Saltburn and I think that there should be more. I think that there should be more to all of Taylor Swift's discography and to Olivia Rodrigo's discography as well. Because Get Him Back, there is an incredible edit on TikTok to Get Him Back by Olivia Rodrigo and it is that's what really sold me. I saw that on my For You page and I sent it to my friend who told me to watch Saltburn and I was like, I am now sold, I will watch Saltburn. That I don't think these marketing teams keep trying to put out like actual ads. You just need to pay like some sophomore year college student who doesn't want to be doing their homework to make you an edit and it will sell me so hard on a show, a movie, on anything. That's how I got into watching the One Piece live action. I saw a Zoro edit and I was like, no, hold on. Now hold on, because now I gotta watch the show and I loved it. But it's those edits that really sell me on a show or on a movie or whatever. That's what you need to invest your marketing budget into. And your advertising budget needs to just go into people making edits for your shows. Because that's how you get good marketing. It's grassroots. It is so good. Anyways, we're not even talking about the movie at this point. We're not even talking about the movie. Let's talk about the movie. Like I said, if you haven't seen the movie, this video is not for you. I'm not going to give you like a recap. I'm fully going to spoil it and we're going to jump around. So if you don't already know what happens in the movie, you're going to be fully lost and I'm not going to catch you up. And I'm going to talk about all the things in the order that I care about. And my number one care in this world? Farleigh Start. I fucking love Farleigh so much. He is my favorite character. He is my favorite character and I love him. And he's the final girl, and him and Oliver's relationship makes me insane. Makes me so clinically ill in the head, because they're insane, because people are all like, oh my god, he's so obsessed with Felix, oh my god, Oliver and Felix. It was never about Felix! It was never about Felix. It was always about Farleigh. It was always about Farleigh. And I believed this coming out of my first watch of the movie. And then when I went back in with the rewatch, it just fully solidified my opinions about their relationship. It has never been about Felix. Maybe it was a little bit towards the end. But why do you think that Farleigh was the final girl? Why do you think that out of all of the people that he killed, he didn't kill Farleigh? That would have been the easiest to kill and the most detached from the family and the person giving him the most trouble. He just sent him away. He was like, go, leave. You don't have to be here. He kept him alive as the final girl. And you might be like, Sam, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't watch horror movies. But I know that he is that. He is the final girl. And it just makes me a little bit insane. It just makes me a little bit insane. Especially because another great edit that I saw is somebody did All I Wanted by Paramore. And it starts by being like, all I wanted was you. And like, it looks like it's for Oliver and Felix. And then it switches to Farleigh. And it's so good. Because they got it. That fully encapsulates my entire feelings about the relationship, about this movie. Because it was. Okay. Let's get into my notes. Literally, love. The first person that he sees as he's walking down those cobblestone steps at Oxford is Farleigh, who passes him by and is like, oh, nice jacket. First line, well, technically not the first line because Oliver has the first line as he's doing the monologue, but the first character to like speak in scene in context is Farleigh. Why even show that? Why show that? Why show that if Farleigh isn't the main character, if Farleigh isn't integral to the plot? And then later, they meet again in like the professor's office. And I don't get the whole point of that professor because we never see him again. And Farleigh comes in and he like looks passingly at Oliver and he's like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Because it doesn't even register in Farleigh's mind that moment happened to him. Like that Farleigh just is kind of an asshole and just walks around saying mean little shit to everybody. And like that moment, which was so big in Oliver's mind and made him feel so like small, was nothing to Farleigh. And that is when Oliver started plotting his demise. And that's my big theory. Let's just get into the big theory. I don't think that this movie is about Felix. I don't think that Oliver ever cared about Felix. I think Oliver always cared about Farleigh, and that the easiest way to fuck with Farleigh was to fuck with Felix. Because Farleigh always had these big walls up. Always. Was always just like very combative, very headstrong, very much like somebody that Oliver couldn't easily manipulate and push around. But you know who the closest person to Farleigh was? Felix. And you know what Felix is? Kind, open-hearted, inviting. So the easiest way for Oliver to get into Farleigh's circle, into Farleigh's life, to fuck with Farleigh, was to become best mates with Felix. Obviously. And you know what else? In every single scene in like their Oxford montage in which you see like Oliver like gazing at Felix or whatever, Farleigh is right next to him. And he is the only person clearly in shot. Here, I will put my screenshots right here. I took screenshots. Every single time that you see like a cut of like Oliver at a distance looking at Felix, Felix is obscured by something, usually another person. I like to think that this is some subtle storytelling to be like there's always somebody in between Oliver and Felix. But you know who's always clearly in shot? Farleigh. Farleigh never has that. It's almost as if the person who's supposed to be the focal point in this scene is Farleigh. It's almost as if it's not about Felix at all. It's almost as if it's not about Felix at all. And you might be like, yeah, Sam, because these are the scenes in which we're supposed to like understand that Farleigh's an antagonist. It's not an antagonist. They are an enemies to lovers arc. They are on an enemies to lovers arc. They're on an enemies to lovers arc. And you don't get that because you're not seeing this you're not seeing it through my eyes, but I see it, I understand it, and I believe it. Because like, that man did not care about Felix at all. He lied to him time after time after time. But you know who he was always shooting straight with? Farleigh. And the only time that he slightly comes clean about his plan is when he's sitting on that couch. I fucking love that couch scene! With Farleigh, and he's like, why'd you tell Felix about me and Venetia? Like admitting to that's a thing that he did. It's the only time he ever admits to anything. is to Farleigh. Ah! And again, when the library scene, where it's like panning down like the aisles of books and you see like Farleigh talking to somebody, and then at the table down the way it's Oliver. It's never been about Felix. You think because the movie frames it, because like when you turn it to the opposite way, it's like, oh, it's Farleigh talking to Felix. So you think it's Oliver looking at Felix, it's Oliver looking at Farleigh. Farleigh's just turned the other way. And you see it when you're coming down the hallway that, oh, that's Farleigh. We don't care about Felix. And I know everybody's obsessed because blah, 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 Jacob Elordi, blah, 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 blah. He's very pretty in this movie. I will give the girlies that. But it's not about him. Everybody's like, oh, the movie's about obsession. Blah, 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 blah. And do I think he was obsessed with Felix? Yes. Towards the end. When he was in the thick of it. But it was always about Farleigh. He only got close to Felix to get close to Farleigh. To take Farleigh down. For what Farleigh said to him. For trying to make him feel small. I also believe that Oliver is a mastermind and that all of the things he did were premeditated, but I don't think his goal from the beginning was to kill the family. I think his goal was just to infiltrate. And again, I think his overall plan was just to fuck with Farleigh. Was to get into Farleigh's life. Was to mess with him for saying that shit to him on the first day. Like, in my mind, and I think the movie really like helps support this theory, is that everything that Oliver does is just a reaction to what happens. Like, he never like sets out from the beginning to just like murder people. He does it because he feels that's like his only option. Like, you see in the scene in which Felix and Oliver are like sitting at that pub and they're talking, and Felix is talking about Farleigh and how Farleigh is like secretly a scholarship boy, how the only reason he's there is because Sir James is like paying for his tuition and blah 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 blah. That to me clearly is the moment in which Oliver's like, okay, so the closest person to you is the scholarship boy because you pity him, because you want to feel helpful and useful. So I will therefore make myself a scholarship boy, because it's that's literally how the beats of the conversation go. Felix is like, oh yeah, Farleigh, blah, 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 blah. And what about you? And then Oliver's like, oh, I need to lie. And then he tries to just like brush it off and like not say anything about his family. He's just like, oh, I'm just a normal guy. But then Felix pushes him on it. And then Oliver's like, okay, well, I guess I have to double down on this lie. And then he starts like telling like all the things about his family, about how his parents are like dysfunctional and blah 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 blah, and now he has no siblings, and just tries to make himself look as isolated and as sad as possible so that Felix takes pity on him like he did on Farleigh. I don't think that Oliver went into that conversation like with that lie in place. I think he took the cues from what Felix was saying about Farleigh, and then it just sort of builds and builds and builds from there. And I think that just is so crazy because Farleigh and Oliver were both so clearly jealous of the place that Felix had in both of their lives. And if they just got over that jealousy and got together, like, properly, we would have been fine. We would have been fine. It was so obvious that Farleigh was so jealous of Oliver taking all this time and attention from Felix, and that Oliver, in the same way, was jealous of the place that Farleigh held in Felix's life. And if they were just like, hey, enemy of the enemy, what if we just become besties? What if we're just like this? Perfect. It would have been perfect. And then you think it's not about Farleigh because then for like a good 30-ish minutes it's just about him and Felix. I don't think it's about him and Felix at all. I think everything that Oliver does is to get to Farleigh. Even if it's to get to Felix, that is only a means to an end to get to Farleigh. Because he knew that he couldn't. Because Farleigh would never trust it. Because Farleigh understands, hey, there's only room for one pity boy at this party. It's not going to be you, it's going to be me. And that's why Farleigh is like so defensive. That's why whenever, like, he has the opportunity, he's going to put Oliver down. Like, at the pub, when Farleigh was like, it's your turn, pub rules, to buy a round of drinks. And Felix was like, lay off him, mate. Farleigh was like, these are the rules. It's what I have to do. Farleigh will always take an opportunity to make Oliver look small so that he looks bigger. Classic insecure behavior. And that never changes. Which is why Oliver knows that he has to go for the other members of Farleigh's family. Like, it would have been too difficult to try and take down Farleigh head on. So he had to like go around the back and stab him in the back. Pull the rug out from under him. And he did it, and he did it so well. He did it twice. There is absolutely no way that during the scene with him and Venetia outside, which is already crazy, outdoors, That's crazy. That he didn't know where Farleigh's room was. And we see just like a couple days later that he goes into Farleigh's room in the middle of the night for that scene that also made me insane. Like, so he knows where his room is. There's no way that he doesn't know where Farleigh's room is. And there's no way that he doesn't know that what he's doing is in full eyelight of Farleigh's room. And he knew what Farleigh would do if he saw that happen. So why would he let that happen if not to make sure that Farleigh saw it? Because he was trying to make him jealous. He was trying to get a rise out of him. Obviously, mate. Like, that shit was calculated. That shit was fully on purpose because he knew what the fuck he was doing. Obviously, yes, he's doing a lot of these things to like manipulate different people of the family, to like exercise more control over them. Yes, blah, blah, blah. But he could have done that not right outside Farleigh's room, and he chose to do that. It was a choice because he knew it was a purposeful, calculated choice. Now we're going to read my notes because I think I wrote incredible notes because again, the couch scene is, as I say, my Roman Empire. It's truly insane behavior between the two of them. It was clearly a test in my mind to see if Oliver had won over Farleigh, to see if he comes at him with that same level of like aloof charm that he does with the rest of the family, if Farleigh would finally like believe him and trust him, especially since Oliver had like put out the vibes to be like, or you could just sleep with me. Having the unspoken be said, he knows what's going on between the two of them, and that it's always been about them since the beginning. That they have an enemies to lovers arc going on. But Farleigh is not going to be duped. He's not going to be lied to and manipulated. His guard is up way too high. So when Farleigh threw that back in his face by making him sing Rent by the Pet Shop Boys, which again, everybody's talking about it. Archie's voice, incredible. But when he threw that back in his face, that's when Oliver knew, okay, we're not gonna, this isn't gonna work. This isn't gonna work. I have to escalate. I have to take it a step farther. Because I always think that he like gives all of these characters like an opportunity to do what he wants, and when they don't do what he wants, then he's like, okay, plan B, which is violence. This is also when I think Oliver sees and decides that he has to go for Felix instead of going for Farleigh. This is when it switches. Because yes, I think Oliver has always been obsessed with Felix, but as a means to an end. Like, he's not in love with Felix, like he said. He's not in love with Felix. He wanted to be Felix because he wanted to hold the space in Farleigh's life that Felix did, because he's obsessed and in love with Farleigh. That's what I think. Like that, like when Venetia says the whole thing about how he's wearing his aftershave, that whole bathtub water scene that everybody wants to talk about. I don't really care about that scene. That scene was whatever. It's clearly him trying to be like, in his sick little, twisted little mind, being like, how can I be more like Felix? How can I get closer to him? How can I be more like him? How can I infiltrate his life? And like Venetia said, eat him from the inside out and wear his skin, basically. He wanted to become Felix. And he did, in a way. It just involved a lot of murder. And that's why I also think when Oliver comes into Farleigh's bedroom and they have that little sex scene, I think that was also another test. When Oliver is like, okay, I understand that you put up a lot of walls and you put up a lot of facades when we're around other people, because they were in like a big party room at the time, even though it's very obvious that like the scene on the couch, the sound design, perfect. They're alone in a crowded room. Perfect. It's clear that he cornered him in his room to be like, okay, so like, no pretenses. You don't have to lie right now. You don't have to have your guard up. What are you gonna do? And Farleigh keeps pushing back. He's like, no, I won't behave. No. Just because he can, just because he wants to. That's when I think Oliver's like, okay, this isn't gonna work. Because Oliver needs complete and total like control over everybody in the house and the situation in order to enact his plan of like taking over Saltburn. And I know that I'm saying that it's all about Farleigh, but I think that he also just is like an evil social climber and also wanted their estate. I think two things can be true. I think that he could want Farleigh and also want Saltburn. Especially like when he walked in and was like, wow, this place is beautiful. I think he did that. I think he also took the early train on purpose so that nobody could come pick him up, so that he could like scope out the place on his own. I think it's also very interesting how you even see when he first arrives at the place that he doesn't go like around the big grass circle. He drags his suitcase straight through it. just sort of marking his territory or whatever. Like, he had that plan from the beginning. I also saw somebody say that, like, when he's sitting on the, like, bridge with Felix and he's like, I don't think I'll ever go home, that, like, that's when he knew that he was going to, like, take over the estate. I don't think he could have known that early, because, like, how could he have known? He'd never been to Saltburn. I think that was just a line that he said in order to continue to manipulate Felix, but I do think once he, like, showed up to the estate and he dragged his suitcase across the grass, that he was like, this is my place, actually. I can do what I want. But yes, Farleigh just keeps pushing him. He keeps fighting him. He's always the person to be like, hey, actually, I'm going to put you in your place because you're not supposed to be here. It's also very fitting that the second that Venetia does that, that's when she dies. Again, it would be so easy. It would be so easy for Oliver, just like he did with Felix and with Venetia and with Sir James. I also suspect, because everyone's like, well, we don't know how Sir James died. He could have died of old age. It says in the newspaper that he died suddenly. I don't think an old person dies suddenly. I don't think it's very sudden when you're old. So I think that he had something to do with that. I don't know how. They don't tell us, but I think that he did. And how he killed Elspeth. It would have been so easy to kill Farleigh, especially since he's so removed from the internal family. Like, killing Felix was such a power move, was such a big swing. And it would have been so easy to just tee up a little Farleigh murder. But he didn't, because Farleigh's the final girl. Because it's always been about Farleigh. He can't kill Farleigh. How could he be with Farleigh if he kills him? That's how I know that he never actually loved or cared about Felix, because he wouldn't have killed him then. The same way that he didn't kill Farleigh, he could have not killed Felix. But also, Felix got a little too close to the truth. He had to kill him once he knew the truth. But I think he gave him the choice. Like, Oliver kept coming to Felix and being like, let's talk about this. I want to make sure that we are good and that you don't blow up my plan. And he tries to talk to him, like, after they get back from Oliver's family's house, and he's like, I just want to be your friend. And it's very sad, and, like, Felix is clearly very upset about it, and he's like, I won't tell my family. And then he corners him and I think Annabelle, like, in the maze, and he's like, please, you need to just understand, you need to forgive me. And he, like, gives Felix this opportunity, because he doesn't just, like, start by handing him the bottle. He tries to have this conversation to be like, maybe my plan could still work. Maybe I don't have to kill anybody. But then Felix is like, I know you, and you make my fucking blood run cold. And then Oliver literally takes a step back and is like, okay, plan B then. Hands him the bottle and then goes to enact the rest of his crazy plan. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that if Felix had, like, done what Oliver wanted and, like, forgiven him and been like, yeah, mate, it's okay, I understand, then nothing would have happened. He would have lived. Oliver wouldn't have had to kill him. And he didn't want to kill him, obviously. He is crazy, but he's not just like somebody who is so crazy that he wants to and revels in the murders that he commits. Especially with Felix, who he, like, loved and, like, grew to be fond of because of how much time he had to spend with him. Because that's why you see him weeping at the grave. And why that whole grave scene happens. And, like, he's clearly, like, actually very distraught about the situation. I do think that the first time that he cries after, like, Felix, like, blows him off and, like, is upset with him after the whole lie is, like, he's crying because his plan is, like, falling apart. I think that was the plan. But I think that he cries at his grave because he actually did not want to kill him. He feels that Felix, like, made him do it. That, like, if Felix had done what he wanted and, like, forgave him, then he wouldn't have had to kill him. But he had to for his plan. And blah, 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 blah. And Felix, different than Farleigh, because he probably could have just found a way to get Felix to disappear. But he did not love Felix the way that he loved Farleigh. The way that he was obsessed with Farleigh. Like, this is a movie about obsession. How obsessed do you have to be with one person to kill the rest of their family? That's obsession. That's crazy. And that's all. Those are my main thoughts about the movie. Those are my main thoughts about the movie, is that it's actually all about Farleigh. Because why else would he live? It would have been so easy. So easy. To do a double murder that night. To kill Farleigh, who wasn't even really supposed to be there. And then also kill Felix. So easy, especially because in that scene where Farleigh's like, I think also that's when like Oliver decides to really like up his plan, because I think he would have been fine like being a slower social climber, playing the long game like he ended up having to do, and just sort of like living in the house for a while. But I think he also realized that like his time was limited because of the way that they treated Pamela. But also I think that like he wasn't going to escalate to murder like right that second until one, Felix found out, and then also two, that conversation with Farleigh, because again it's all about Farleigh. I think that that conversation with Farleigh really pumped up his mindset about how far he had to escalate his plan for it to work, because Farleigh really got in his face and was like, you think that this summer is going to just be the rest of your life? No, this is going to be a memory that you bore your fat children, but this is my house. And Oliver's like, oh, for sure, bet. Actually, no, this is my house. This is my house, actually. And you thought you're actually never going to be seen in this house again, because it's going to be my house. My house. And I think that that's iconic. And I think that that's a perfect, like, turn, checkmate move, where I truly don't think that Oliver knew at that moment how his plan was going to go, because obviously like he had a plan to like sneak into the family, but I don't think he could have planned for such a lofty goal, because even at that time like Elsbeth wasn't like as taken with him as he was when Felix and then Venetia died. But you see it so clearly with Felix when she's like, you're not going to leave Saltburn, are you, darling? And it's just like, I don't think Oliver could have planned for that sort of reaction in order to be like, okay, well, she is so taken with me, so this estate will be mine. I think he had plans in the works, dominoes ready to be toppled over, but I don't think that like he knew anything could have happened. Like anything could have happened. Like he could have killed Felix, and like they could have like found out that it was him that had something to do with it. I don't know. I just feel like there's so many variables in a situation like that like Oliver, who's a smart and calculating guy, could have like known that, hey, there's only like an X% chance that this actually works out the way that I want it to, and I need to have contingency plans in case like it doesn't work out. Like he learned with the Felix situation, like sometimes things go wrong. But I do think that once he had that conversation with Farleigh, where Farleigh was like, once again just like throwing shit back in his face, that made Oliver like double down on his plan, and he was like, no, actually I'm going to kill everybody. I also think that the murder perfectly solidifies his plan of making sure that Farleigh never gets back in the house, because Farleigh's like, I'm family. If he kills all of his familial ties, he kills any chance that he has of getting back into that house. But yeah, I think it's a great film. Like I said, I called a lot of the twists, and I don't think that makes for a bad movie. I think that makes for a great movie, because I love when I'm like, something's amok here, something's not right here, and I know what it is, and then I'm right. I love being right. There's nothing I love more in this world than being right. Like when he was talking about Pamela and about like the emotional manipulation and whatnot, I was like, that's a self-report. That's a self-report right there. And when they were like driving to his family's home, I was like, what if his dad's alive? And then it was. And then when Felix died, I was like, he fully killed him. And then when Venetia died, I was like, he fully killed her. And then he admitted to all the crimes. I was like, I love it. I love being right. I do think it's crazy, though, that he, like, pulled the tube out of Elsbeth's throat, because there's no way that a coroner, that a forensic person does not see that and is like, oh, so you did that. Because, like, a person in her state's not going to pull it out herself, actually. That's not how that works. He could have just undid the thing and, like, let her slowly die of, like, oxygen depletion or whatever, and then put it back. I think that would have been a lot smarter. Because there's no way you don't go away from murder when obviously you are the one who did that. But he seemed to be very happy in his big old mansion, so he did what he wanted to do. I also think it's just very interesting, the whole puppet motif. How he first walks into their home and he sees like all of the family members as just like little puppets on the string, and he's like the puppet master. I think that was very cute, very clever. But you know who's not on those strings? Farleigh. Farleigh was never able to be manipulated. And that's why he's obsessed with him. Because somebody of that, like, craziness but of that calculating mental caliber. He really loved how Farleigh always pushed back at him, how Oliver is so easily to manipulate everybody else. Like, Farleigh's a challenge. It's like hard to get. So I think that that's why he's obsessed with him. This is just my big theory. That's my big takeaway from the movie, is that it was actually about Farleigh the whole time. Because there's so many scenes, especially at in the first section when they're at Oxford, in which you just see Farleigh glaring at Oliver. And you might think it's because, oh, he doesn't like him. It's actually the opposite. It's actually the opposite. Like the scene in which he's like, nice tux. That was flirting. That was clearly flirting. It was mean, but it was mean flirting in a gay way. And I just think it's so interesting because there could have been one scene, a couple scenes, in which Felix and Farleigh aren't literally joined at the hip. But no. Every single scene in which Oliver is supposed to be looking at Felix, Farleigh's in the same frame. It's not even just like he's sitting next to him and the frame is focused on Felix. Farleigh is always the person clearly in frame, the only person not obscured by other people. Like, Felix is also in the shot, I guess, but the shot in my mind is always clearly about Farleigh. Always. Always. Every single one of those scenes. Every single one of those scenes, it's Farleigh right there. Clearly in frame. He could have been like slightly cut out to be like, okay, the frame is focused on, no, the frame is never focused on Felix. It's always focused on Farleigh because it's about Farleigh. It's not about Felix. It's always about Farleigh. It's not about Felix. And that's all I have to say about this movie. Those are my big thoughts. Those are my big thoughts. And I think Oliver also tells on himself in the final monologue when he's like, I hated you all. That's why I had to kill you. And the only person who lived was Farleigh. If he hated him, why did he kill him? It's because he didn't hate him. It's because he loved him. It's because he was obsessed with him. I don't think we're ever going to get a sequel. I don't know why we would get a sequel, but I would love a sequel. I would love a sequel with Oliver and Farleigh. Just like a whole mental chess game. Maybe it's because I was a Sherlock girly growing up, but I just think the two people who are that would be so good. It'd be so good to just see underhanded conversations, conversations that feel like they're about one thing but are secretly about another, like the whole karaoke scene where he's like, this is your song too, Farleigh, come finish it. Him basically being like, yeah, you're calling me out for being poor and taking the money and goodwill of this family, but you're doing so as well. I love conversations that are secretly about something else. Those are my thoughts about the film. I think it was good. I think it was crazy though how nobody used the real accents. The fact that Archie is not actually American was deeply shocking to me. And I saw somebody on TikTok be like, his American accent is so bad. No, it's not. It's literally not, because the second that I heard it, I was like, that's an American. And I never once clocked his British accent, not once throughout this whole movie. I only realized he was British when I saw him in interviews, and I was like, excuse me? Same with Jacob Elordi. Jacob Elordi has an incredible American accent. I did not know that he was Australian until I saw him in an interview with his weird Australian accent. I was like, they talk like what? It was shocking. It was gag-worthy. So, whoever said that his American accent is bad is a liar. I can't speak to the other British accents in the movie. I don't know. I don't listen to them that closely. They sounded fine to me. That being said, do we think that the Catton family was racist? Do we think that the reason that they treated Farleigh so poorly was because he's black? Because Farleigh seemed to suggest that, and then Felix was like, how dare you? We never think about you any different, blah, 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 blah. I don't know if that's true. I do think that they think about him differently. I don't know if it's because he's black. I wouldn't put it past them. I do think it's interesting how the only other two black people in the movie are the people on staff. And how you don't know their names. I think that's very interesting. That Farleigh knows their names, but you don't know their names. Felix, man of the house. I think that's just very interesting. There's also this weird look that Farleigh and that footman share. During the breakfast scene where they're planning Oliver's birthday thing, that I don't fully understand. I don't know what that look is supposed to imply. But I also think that Oliver did not want a big birthday party. Obviously, it would not be good for him. The less people involved in his scheme, the better. The less people to kill, the better. But it was obviously him as a reaction, as a way to antagonize Farleigh, because Farleigh tried to antagonize him by being like, what friends? And then Oliver was like, I would love a party, or whatever he said. Basically just trying to like do something to upset Farleigh, because that's all that they're doing. That is all that they're doing. Every time that Farleigh comes and tries to push one of Oliver's buttons, Oliver pushes back. And I think that, not to like say that anything that he did was fine or right or blah 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 blah, and that not to say that Oliver isn't like a crazy fucked up person, obviously, but also this is film. It's fine. I do think that a lot of the things that he does are in reaction to the other characters. I do believe that this plan started because of Farleigh. Even in that scene in which he's like looking at the window and you think he's looking at Felix, you know who else is in that fucking shot? Farleigh. They're both in the shot. It would have been so easy to just zoom in and not have Farleigh in that shot, but he is, because it's about Farleigh. That's the moment that he sees it. That's the moment when he's observing that conversation and he's like, who is that guy that was just like a fucking asshole to me for no reason? Oh my god, look, it's his best friend. It's like such a common thing. I don't know how other people aren't saying this. It's a thing that happens all the time. You like somebody, they piss you off, you fuck their best friend. It is basic revenge 101. Basic revenge 101. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. It's like, it's so very clear to me, so very obvious. And I think it's very iconic of him. I don't know. I didn't like the Cattons. I thought that they were fine. I think that's another thing as well, is that they did a really good job of being like, yes, these are rich people, but they're not like actively bad or malicious people. They're just kind of, like Felix, despite being like the 1%, was quite kind to a lot of people. So it makes it so that you're not like rooting against them, so that when they get murdered you're like, oh, that's sad. Especially because this isn't like an eat the rich movie. Everybody wants to think that this is like some sort of Parasite, and it's not. This will never be, nothing will ever be Parasite. Parasite is an incredible film. And also because Oliver isn't poor. Oliver is fine. He's like middle class. He's just an evil social climber. But the question is, why? It's not like he has some sort of like Alexander Hamilton arc where it's like, oh, he'll never be satisfied where he is. I genuinely think that it's because of Farleigh. That he is jealous of the place that Felix holds in Farleigh's life. So he's like, how do I become Felix? How do I become Felix? And he's obsessed with Farleigh. He's like, how do I become Felix? I need to take over his life. I need to take over the estate. And like, yes, once he saw how beautiful the estate was, he was like, collateral damage, I'll also take the house. But I don't think that was like his goal from the beginning, because like, why? Like, sure, we could just be like, he's just like an evil, psychopathic social climber. But like, we never see that in him, really. Like, I don't know, there was nothing prior to that that would indicate that that was who he was. I think he's just somebody who likes to manipulate people. And I think the fact that he couldn't easily manipulate Farleigh, and that Farleigh gave him so much pushback from day one, that's something that really intrigued him and started the obsession. That's what I believe. But anyways, let me know what you think. What did you think about this movie? Again, as I said at the beginning, if you're like, the movie's so bad, it's so fucked up, blah, 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 we have different ideas of the movie, and we should not speak. Not that I'm never against talking to people who have different opinions than me, but like, if we are coming from this movie with two completely different mindsets, we will find no common ground. If we can't even agree on the fact that this is a very tame movie, how are we going to talk about the meat? If we can't deconstruct the box, how are we going to talk about what's inside of it? I just think, if this movie wasn't for you, that's fine. But for those who it was, let me know if you're on the same page that this was actually always about Farleigh. Or, if you don't agree, go back and watch the movie with that in mind, and then be like, oh, yeah, maybe. Because I think it will. I think once you think about that, once you think about Farleigh, and Farleigh's at the forefront of your mind, and you watch the movie, you're like, oh yeah, actually, there is a lot of Farleigh in this movie. Like, the first, 20 minutes, it's just Farleigh. Like, we don't really get to Felix until, a little bit ways into the movie. Like, we see Farleigh on the first day of school, we see Farleigh in the professor's office. Again, when we're panning down the library, it's Farleigh sitting in the chair and, Felix off at the table. And every scene with Felix also has Farleigh, and there's multiple points in the party scenes, at the pub scenes, in which it's supposed to be a montage of Oliver and Felix getting close. Why the fuck is Farleigh in all those scenes then? If this is supposed to be a Felix Oliver montage, then why is Farleigh there? It's because it's actually always about Farleigh. It's because Oliver always knows where Farleigh is, always knows what he's doing, always knows what he's thinking, because all of this was a calculated move to get to him. I think another scene that really supports this is the bowl scene, like the fancy sculpted bowl scene that Oliver lies about knowing. It could have been so easy. It would have been so easy for them to just show him impressing the family, or even him impressing Felix in that moment, if it was really about Felix. But it wasn't. Because you know who they cut to? They cut to Farleigh being like, oh my god. It's because this is once again a move on Oliver's part to get a one-up on Farleigh. It's never been about Felix. And then once he had him, once they hooked up, he was like, you have to go. Because now I have a bigger plan in place. Like, yes, I do believe that he wanted to take down the family, but I do believe that all of it started from Farleigh. And I also believe that, like, if Felix didn't, like, blow up at him for, like, cleaning up his room or whatever, that was such a weird scene as well. I think, again, it was another one of, like, Oliver's, like, test to be, like, how far can he push it? Because you want to... The movie frames it like Oliver cares about Felix sleeping with, like, India or Annabelle, one of them. I don't think Oliver cares, like, literally at all. I think he was upset because it, like, probably hurt his plan to be like, oh, there's somebody who is taking that number one spot in Felix's life and it's not me, which is, like I said before, there's somebody in between Oliver and Felix, which he does not like because it makes his plan harder. But I think that whole scene was, like, a test to be like, how much can he, like, push Felix, and how much can he manipulate the situation before Felix snaps. And he snapped a lot sooner than he expected. And he snapped a lot sooner than he expected. And it didn't, like, blow over as easily, which is why he had to do, like, that whole crazy thing about, like, lying about his dad dying, in order to, like, bring Felix back in. Because he went to the pub and he saw, again, Farleigh and Felix sitting together and they didn't invite him. And there's a beautiful scene in which he's walking outside away from the pub, the lighting turns blue, he literally does a spin, and then the lighting is red. Perfect visual storytelling. It's so good, and it's subtle in a way that, like, if you only understand a little bit of film work like I do, you get it. He goes from being sad to being angry to get even. Don't get sad, get even. That's when he went from being like, oh, I'm sad that I am losing out on this opportunity, I'm sad about the situation, I'm sad that they're blowing me off, I'm sad that I feel like a nobody, like a loser again, somebody who never had any friends, and then he's like, actually no, I'm Oliver Quick, I can do anything. And that's when his plan, like, really starts getting evil, gets insidious, and that's when he does another big swing. That's when the big swing starts. I don't think that the Annabelle scene was important at all. I don't think that had anything to do with anything. I think that scene could have been cut and, like, literally nothing would change in the movie. Because I think he goes from the pub and he has, like, the resolve to be like, I'm going to be evil now. And then he goes back to his dorm and he sees Annabelle there and he's like, why not? Why not have a bit of fun and also, like, basically spit in Felix's face? So he, like, tries to hook up with Annabelle. He says something stupid. It doesn't go well. And then the next morning he wakes up and he gets the call from his mom, and, like, it's supposed to imply that, like, his father's dead, but we know his father's not really dead. And then that's when he goes to Felix's room and, like, has the whole, like, well, Dad's dead, I'm so sad, big moment. And it's because that night he had decided to enact his evil plan. I think that's when he decided to be like, that's when he went, like, clearly from the blue to red, to be like, I am no longer going to be playing nice. Now's the time to start getting evil. I think that's when it happened, but you let me know. Do you think that Oliver decided to be a murderer from the very beginning? Do you also agree that it's all been about Farleigh? Like it obviously is? Let me know. Let me know. I don't watch many movies, but when I do, I make full videos about them because I don't watch many movies. Maybe I'll watch more movies this year. I'm trying to, as I said on my letterbox, try to get to 300 movies. And if I watch 11 movies this year, which I likely won't, because again, I watch maybe a 4-ish to 5. I watch no more than 10 movies a year. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe. Who knows? I'm not a movie girly. It's just simply not who I am. But let me know what you thought about this cinematic masterpiece that is Saltburn. And if you're somebody who makes edits, Please make one to Now That We Don't Talk. I think it would be incredible. I'm going, ah! I'm all the quick, I can do anything.